Hello everyone. Yes, in today's episode I'm looking at the new Skaven Clanrats. Well, I say new, I mean this set, the Skaven Tide set, that came out over the summer, didn't it? And I'm only just sort of getting these guys now. I didn't buy Skaven Tide. I've got no interest in the Stormcast or Age of Sigmar 4th edition. I've got no interest in the majority of the Skaven models because I've got all my Ratmen. But I'll be damned if there's an update to the Clanrats that I don't take part in at some point, right? Because I go all the way back to the OG, the only Clanrats that came out before these were the Hero Quest snap click ones, right? So like I've got a bit of lineage with these guys. From the last edition of Warhammer Fantasy 8th edition, the Clanrats used to look like this. They used to, consist of about 2 or 3 parts at most, because the head, body, legs, arms, that was all a single piece, and you just chose what weapon you want and stuck that in there. The easy to build ones from the Island of Blood, the shields came morphed into the body, so you didn't even put the shield on, which allowed you, when you bought the separate box, allowed you to create like Skaven slaves. Because remember when Skaven slaves were a thing, Games Workshop? I remember. But anyway, so with my Skaven army project, it's about time that I actually updated my Clanrats. Historically, famously, I had a completed unit of 30 spear Clanrats, spears and shields, full command. That was, as it turned out, a really solid choice throughout most of 8th edition, because although hordes were the thing, you did hordes with slaves and with storm vermin. With Clanrats, you could just have a block of 30. They would get the maximum rank bonus to their leadership because of Skaven... was it Skaven Courage or whatever it was called? So 30 was fine. That's all you needed. With spears, you had something like 15, 20 models that would attack in combat. It was absolutely glorious. Slaves, you'd go for big units, but I never really ran them bigger than 20. And that's if I ran them at all, because to be honest, if you're going to cheap out on points, you may as well just get Clanrats, but without spears. Keep them with shields, but just no hand weapons. So that's where you would get things like this little guy, who I never finished my unit of 30 hand weapon and shield guys, probably because they weren't terribly effective. But I did use the hand axe from the Empire Greatsword kit, because it's a fantastic bit. Yeah, for whatever reason, those 30 Clanrats with hand weapons and shields, gone, can't find them. Gone, lost to time. But the spear ones, the really nice unit, found them, dug them out. They're mostly fine. There's like 7 that need some fixes, but that's it. And then we get to these guys. We get to the new Clanrats from the Skaven Tide set. And I'll give credit to GW where it's deserved. They do look quite nice. And they're not massive. They look to be roughly in scale with classic Clanrats. So let me just show you what I mean for a minute, right? All right, you see this rat here. You see how all of his proportions are pretty good. Let's line him up with this rat here. And as you can see, that's pretty much the same. Maybe a little smaller, maybe a little bigger in some cases, but they are basically identical in terms of size, which is fantastic, because that means they fit nicely at home with all the 8th edition Skaven. That means they fit at home nicely with all the storm vermin that existed in 8th edition. That means they fit in nicely with pretty much any Skaven force you have at home, so long as it's not the big chunky OG Skaven, or the ones that came after, the equally big but sort of work in progress Skaven that GW made all those years later. The first multi-part Skaven plastic kit that they released. It was an attempt, and is probably more famous for the Mordheim, Eshin, Gutter Runners and Night Runners box that they did, because of all the hand weapons and ninja weapons that came with it. But they're still, if you've still got them, you can still use them. They're just big and chunky. So what's my plan? I'm going to go through these 2 frames, because it's 20 Skaven over 2 frames. They are monopose, and the majority of them are hand weapon and shield. There's like 1 or 2 that have got spears, So I've got to figure out what I'm doing there, if I'm leaving them in the hand weapon and shield squad, or if I'm putting them in a new spear squad, or even extending this past 30, because why not? But in terms of actually assembling this, again, this comes down to Games Workshop doing things relatively intelligently. They give options not just for multiple flavors of leader with different heads, but also the option to turn leaders into regular Clanrats and vice versa. So although you get in a box of 20 like some repeats, like it says, oh, you're going to make 2 of this one, 2 of this one, 2 of this one, and 2 of this one, you do get a whole bunch where you go, oh, hang about, I don't need to have 2 standards in this unit. I don't need to have 2 musicians. Pick the one that you like the best and then make the other guy as a generic Clanrat. That is an option. And you go, oh, that's really smart. So, yeah, credit to them for it. But I'm going to build these guys up, mount them on 20 mil squares, and we'll just see what that looks like in amongst all this. Alright, so as you can see, I've finished this unit of 20 with these 3 here to the side. As you can clearly see, they suffer from round base syndrome, where the actual footprint of the model really hangs over the front and the back, because these were designed to go on circles, which I always find a little ironic considering they don't rank up particularly well on circles either. But compared to your traditional Warhammer Fantasy miniature, which, you know, some of them, I'll give credit where it's due, some of them do match that quite nicely. They do have that same kind of rankability. I mean, side by side, these are not going to look out of place, even though they were made a decade apart from each other. But you do get the models where you've got things like tails, and how do we resolve the issue of the tails? As you're trying to push it in, it's just going to like bump up against the models behind it. My solution is just going to be to bend it. So let's literally just do that now while I'm talking to you. Because even if it's just a case of getting it up a little bit, if that's all it takes to get it to stick against something relatively well, then so be it. It doesn't have to be perfect at the end of the day. It just has to not snap off the model, because that would suck, which Skaven tails for whatever reason are always so want to do. But at the same time, you know, it's just got to be enough that it allows it to actually sit up against other models nicely. And the whole thing about rat's tails is they're quite flexible anyway, so you can kind of get away with it. But there you go, that is the unit of 20 brand new Skaven Tide models assembled. Just before we have a look at some of the extra bits that come with it, they are some of the easiest models to assemble. They are literally 2 pieces. In most cases, they are 2 pieces that snap together, and that's it. You've got your Rat Man. There is no customization at all with these guys, unless you go to the length of cutting off weapons. You cannot change the shields. I'd say all of the shields are either moulded directly onto the body of the model, like in the case of this spear rat here. You can see how the spear contacts his leg, it contacts his chainmail skirt, it contacts his arm, it contacts everything about him. You cannot remove that easily, but you can easily chop off the top of his spear and replace it with something else. So these guys do have a lot of customization in the sense of you can swap the weapon tops, which, to be fair, I would always recommend doing anyway. Like, it doesn't take 2 seconds to dig out like an old Chaos Warrior weapon to chuck on top of a spear, and all of a sudden that is different to the other 99 Skaven Clanrats that you've got in your army. And considering these guys, the majority of their weapons are salvaged rubbish anyway, that's great. I am going to add these extra guys to it. I've got these 4 extra traditional Skaven models that are just sort of floating in the breeze at the moment, because they never really fit into the slave unit. Speaking of which, I need to pull 1 extra guy out of there, so I'm just looking to see which one's the least slave looking. There's a sentence I never thought I'd say in my life. Probably... because you want one with a bit of armour on them as well. Because that's the thing. Some of the classic models that you look at them, you think, yeah, they made these to be slaves. Wow, that sounds so terrible. Don't take a sound bite of that. Oh, just for simplicity's sake, we're just going to say this one for now. Just with the punching dagger. So I've got 5 more that I'm going to do as an extra rank, but the nice thing about having the old ones and the new ones that don't necessarily fit together nicely, you can intersperse the old with the new so that they do fit together. Now, something I do want to look at just quickly, just before I finish off, is because of how they design the models to have, you know, for the leaders, like the Clanrat option as well as the different leader options, you do get extra bits. You get some, like, you know, just a weird bit of a leg and two arms or 2 hands holding a weapon, or you'll get, like in the case of this guy, pretty much an entire Clanrat. All he's missing is 1 leg and 1 arm, right? Same as this, right? You're just missing a head and, admittedly, half a torso. But then this is the really weird thing about how they've done the kit. You can kind of look at it and go, oh, maybe I could just like splice these weird bits together and that'd be okay. But anyway, so the point is, you do get quite a lot of extra bits. Is there enough here to make an extra Clanrat? I've no idea. I love the extra heads and things that you get and banners and so on. Skaven kits have always been great for that. Same as this guy, possibly the only instance of a shield that is easy to remove. But to be honest, I quite like the fact that the carapace is just one single part, because then that could be used on a modelling project. So yeah, there's, interestingly enough here potentially for an extra Skaven warrior. It's just a case of how much fiddling do you want to do to get it to work, and that's an extra Clanrat. Oh, there you go, that could solve that problem. That's an extra Clanrat. Again, with weapons, like, you know, okay, I'm holding the Claw Leader's arm as an example. On the classic Skaven kits, even the single piece easy build ones like this guy here, you would always get like just an arm hole free to stick a weapon in. Oh, would you look at that? Oh, you could just stick whatever weapon that you have left over, and all of a sudden you've got, you know, old and new combined as a model. So yeah, review of the new Skaven Clanrats. They're great. I think they're really nice. They don't rank up well nicely at all. They require a lot more effort to get them to rank up. During assembly, I felt like there were little nods towards them being made for dual use, because you have like things like the little nubs on the bottom. You get like these little indents on the nubs, and you think, oh well, if I'm coming along with a pair of pliers, you know, is that there to make it, if you see that, is that there to make it easier to snip that off? But I don't know. I can't say for certain. Honestly, absolutely fantastic. I would, if you're a Skaven guy and you've been eyeing up the new models and haven't made the leap because you didn't know if they were going to look too big or too goofy, especially compared to like the old Skaven, like they are nicely in scale by comparison, especially like the traditional goofy cartoon Skaven models, like they're much more in scale, much nicer. So yeah, honestly, I would recommend them. It does get me, out of 20 models, 3 have got spears. 3. Why bother? Why bother? Just give them all hand weapons. And for whatever reason, I feel like the majority of these guys have clubs. Looking at it now, I'm not seeing that many clubs. But when I was assembling them, it felt like every model I was putting together had a club rather than a sword or knife. And the reality is it's only like 5 or 6. And I don't know why it felt that way, but I look at them now and I can see all the different swords and knives and daggers and things. But at the time, it genuinely felt like, because there's 1, 2, 3. Oh no, so he's got a sword. I'm counting the hook as a club. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If you take out the hook, it's 6. I don't know. It just felt like there was a lot, even though there's not. I've always preferred swords and things over like the clubs and mattocks. So anyway, I'm just rambling now. But yes, fantastic unit. Would recommend. I'm going to have a bit of a play and see if I can stretch the. Well, I know I can stretch this to 25. I'm going to see if I can justify stretching it to 30, but I don't think I can. I think it might be a 25 unit. All right, that's everything. Bye for now.